Semper Fi Airsofters, and welcome to the day. I'm Curtis,
And I'm Sean.
and we are Foxtrot Defense Airsoft. Today, we are doing our very first intro into Tech Talks. And we have Clint from Russell Customs here with us today. How are you, Clint?
I'm good.
So why don't you give us just a little bit about what you do and
How you got there?
Yeah.
And how I got there. Well, what I do is I run a small business out of my home, and I do different types of AEG tech work. So whether it's your normal M4 or AK, or I do some of the more interesting guns like a Crytek Vector. But a lot of what I do is mostly brushless motor work. So the nature of that is just that the performance is very high. It's a really good step in terms of airsoft technology, in that there's literally no drawbacks to brushless motors except they're more expensive, but it gives you almost an HPA level of performance if you can make it durable. So that's mostly what I do. I got a house full of guns, and I just try to keep them moving and keep them from breaking.
on average, how many orders can you take in a week and get completed?
I try to ship out 4 guns a week.
Oh, wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah, I try to churn out 4 guns a week. So sometimes I get more than that, or sometimes like I worked on a Specna AK 2 weeks ago. It took me 5 days just because it was real finicky, and I was losing my mind, even on Adderall. Couldn't keep me focused, but yeah, exhausted.
That's fair. Now, tell us how you got into airsoft and what made you join into the tech department.
Well, what made me join Airsoft is an unsatisfied, an unmet desire to go into the Army as a younger man, and had a major back injury, had to have major back surgery. So they didn't want me, and so, but I didn't get into Airsoft until many years later. I think I was just so happy to have a normal life after my back surgery, because I was pretty crippled, and so I think when I got my life back, I was just happy just to be functional. So I didn't get into Airsoft till I moved to Texas, probably about 8 years after my operation. And then I went and played I came to a local field, Texas Paintball, and my first game was very enjoyable. I would say that the first game that I played was on a really awesome setup map, and I think that solidified my experience of wanting to play and wanting to get more into it. I think having good experiences matters with anything, especially when you're first time.
Right.
So then I got home, and then I was like, well, so I bought a shitty used Lancer that had a misfeeding problem, which I know now is probably taffet plate or delayer related, but didn't know back then. And then, yeah, I'm a little autistic, and I think I grew up playing with Legos. Right, I had 2 monster bins of Legos, and so there was always, I mean, the hours that you'd spend just building, you have an unlimited box of parts, and it's up to you to create the coolest shit you could.
Yeah.
So it's easy to buy a kit, easy to buy a box and follow the instructions, right? But I think part of that mentality led me to the point that I just can't leave stuff stock. Like I had a Focus ST that I had about $20,000 in mods in.
Oh.
Then I traded in for $3,000 2 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, man. Big turbo systems and Brembo brakes. Yeah, anyway. So I just
don't even know how you could put that much money into one.
There's always more to be had, is how I look at it. There's always more performance that can be a better experience or whatever. So when I got into Airsoft, that's my natural trainer progression, is let me take this gearbox apart, and then, like most people, not be able to get it back together. And then that was just, then combination of YouTube and Reddit, you learn how to make stuff better or get to fix it, and that's how I got into tech work. Just doing my own guns initially, of course.
I mean, him and I are the same way as you. We bought stock guns, and we were not happy with the performance of a stock gun, so we both went into
how you feel.
attempting to do our own tech work as we just started into Airsoft, and we learned a lot, but we also learned it's not really for us.
Yeah. I don't mind to do it, but at the same time, it's like
no one gets it right their first time, and there's a lot of you gotta fuck up a lot. Like anything, you just gotta fuck up a lot, but then still be mad enough to keep going.
Yeah,
I think I learned
Absolutely.
that from learning how to weld.
yeah.
Another one I can agree with, being a
Yeah.
welder as well.
We both weld, so
Oh, fair enough. What kind of welding?
I'm certified in pretty much all of them, but
Oh,
yeah,
cool. Fair enough.
I'm certified stick and I can MIG as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, before
so
I went,
it's one of those.
I was out at Samsung recently running a bunch of TIG, but it's like on the roof of the building, and it's brutal.
We just do regular carbon or
Stainless.
uh,
Yeah, TIG and stainless. So yeah, you're having to like protect the wind, but the pipe is high. It's brutal.
too much. Yeah, don't want to sugar. No sugaring.
At least there's no sparks, you know.
Can weld without a shirt. It's
Yeah.
nice.
For a little while.
Yeah,
But
for a
that
little
is-
while until you're crispy. I think I
But-
got one of those right now.
The hard line, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. It's farmer's tan.
Yeah,
But yeah,
pretty
that's.
much.
I think we all had the same experience doing first time tech work. It's like you open this up and you're like, what did I do?
Yep, exactly.
Especially if it's not a
I-
quick chain spring. You got to like put this bomb back together.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Take it apart, right? And everything just kind of goes.
Yeah, your gears pop out when you open the gearbox, and
If you lose
Yeah.
one shim, it's over.
it took me like 4 days to put my first time. Took me 4 days to put my gearbox back together, and I still put it back together wrong.
Oh yeah, that's yeah, relatable.
So you're gonna be at Six Flags, right?
That's right. Fuck yeah.
Are you gonna have a tent?
I'll have a tent, and then I'm gonna have two things. So I'm gonna have a tent with some display guns, but then I'm gonna have another table at the Chrono where people can shoot my products.
Oh wow.
Because it's like
Oh.
it's especially when it comes to the Tokyo Marui recoil shocks, is like they look like a VFC. So if you don't shoot them, you don't understand why they cost what they cost or what they offer. And so there's no reason that you'd be like, well, that could be a
Right.
stock VFC for all you know, and it's not.
Now, are you gonna be offering any kind of tech work while you're there?
No tech work. I will be giving away a build though. That's part of my.
Oh,
That'll be in the raffle. But no, I'm not there to do
Oh.
work. I'm there to showcase my products. That if
Yeah.
people are interested, they can get queued up, or talk to ask me whatever. But I'm also there to play because it's going to be
Yeah,
a dope
course.
event. I got brand new dual tubes, and I'm ready to rock.
Oh man.
hey, you gotta play with those.
I'm
Yeah.
super excited. I'm gonna start going. I want to go some more Nilsen West events now.
So you're in Texas, right?
That's correct. Yeah, just north of Austin.
You got an event coming up in October with
Starburst.
TCA Starburst. Yeah.
Yep. I'll have a booth there too.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
And I'll be giving away another build there as well. Here I am.
Whenever you feel like giving a build this way, you
Yeah, I
just
know.
let us
Here I am
know.
making. I know. I got two. I'm giving away two like $1,000 builds in a row. I think my wife. I don't
Ooh.
like her.
Right.
Like yeah, like 2 weeks apart. I'm giving away two like
Mm-hmm.
expensive motherfucking guns.
Well, hey, that's a great way to really get your name out. Is showcase your product and give away some product.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's nice for them to let me have it. Yeah, Sal, because I went to the event. I went to Third Coast event in the spring, and I asked Sal if I could have a table out there, and they didn't know what I was offering or like what my products were. And so now, because they've seen my products, he invited me back, and so they also want to do a booth, a table at Chrono, and encourage people to shoot my products.
Yeah.
Especially the recoil
which event
shops.
were you
Like,
at?
if you don't shoot them, the price tag doesn't make any sense. And the price tag might not make any sense anyway. But they're not cheap.
For the avid player,
Well, I mean,
for us to know.
everybody's different, right? I don't, and I know a lot of milsim people that strictly play milsim don't have stock weapons. There's nothing stock about their gun anymore.
No.
And, we want to bring the best foot forward to airsoft community with the best products, and we've seen your products, and in a couple weeks we'll get to shoot some of your products and
Oh, fuck
and
yeah.
talk with you and see some of it, and you know, let everybody know, Russell Customs is the way to go.
I appreciate that. There's a lot of good tech guys out there, and but I feel like the recoil shocks I really like to build. I feel like
Yeah.
there's a lot of good V2, V3 builders out there, but I'd like to corner the market on the recoil shock, but you can't do that. I mean, first of all, there's too much work. So there's a lot of
So
good ways to get your guns built, though.
So here's the thing. Are you able to take guns and orders at your booth at Six Flags?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'll be a good way to, if anybody wants tech work done, that they can take home, that you can take home with you and with a list of parts that they want done.
Yeah, and then for each customer that I work with, I'm not like usually like if it comes to like a brushless build that they want done, the parts list is pretty copy and paste because for me it's about durability. Like
Mm-hmm.
while the gun does perform at a very high rate, it's about I'm not like open to like, oh, what about this piston or that piston, or I want to use these springs or whatever. It's like, hey, it's like if and some techs they'll work a lot more with their customers, but it's like, hey man, if you want this level of performance, these are the parts I want to put in there because I don't want your gun to come back.
Yeah, because you know what works.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's got a 2-year warranty, and I don't want your gun to show up on my door.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Especially if you're putting that kind of warranty on something, you want to make sure you have the best quality in the gun to succeed.
Yeah, especially if they're putting that money on the
because
table.
of that,
Yeah.
and because of that, the parts list is usually it changes. So
Mhm.
I'm recently moved to a much stronger piston. That's probably now the strongest component in the gearbox. And I just did 2 LMG builds with these new Solink helical gears, and I may try to just move to those gears fully for the brushless builds. They're $40 instead of $25 for the SHS Gen 5s, but the quality seems worth more than double the cost.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
So walk us through a little bit of your parts list of what you would put into a standard brushless.
So for me, there's only 2 ETUs I really work with. I don't like to use gate products anymore. I feel like I think on the V2s, I think the best option is to go for the more budget route is to use the Perun unit, Perun, Perun. People say different words. It doesn't have any light sensitivity issues. Like the problem with the Titans is they use a light sensor to track. They use optical sensors to track the trigger.
Yeah.
So sometimes if I ship a gun from Texas up to New York or to Montana, the light angle is different. And so it may run fine here with the sun overhead, but at a different latitude, they may have selector issues. They may have automatic discharge issues. I had a bunch of players at Reindeer Games at Fort Hood here in December last year. And people's guns were like shooting them in the foot. They were just firing.
Oh, wow.
Unsafe.
Oh, wow.
They were firing unsafe because it uses light. And if the light gets into that gearbox in a weird way and the sun's at a low angle, it'll decide that it's an automatic and it'll decide that you've pulled the trigger.
Interesting.
So
Very
Perun's great because
interesting.
it uses a magnet, so you can't fool a magnet, right? The magnet either goes or doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. So for the V2s and for the V3s, I like the Perun a lot. And then I think the best quality option is the Jeftron, which uses a really high quality micro switch, like the volume button on your smartphone.
Yeah.
And then you can tune it to make it. Of some of my videos you've seen, like you just touch the trigger, and it goes off. Like I took that AirTac build to an indoor place a couple of weekends ago, and some of the HPA players were shooting themselves in the foot because it was more sensitive than their HPA gun.
They were used to that trigger.
But it's just dangerous, yeah. Dangerous.
It can be.
So when it comes to trigger units, that's important. You want them to be smart and intelligent. So Perun or Jeftron. And then for brushless motors, I only use the T238, which is a really well-built motor. It's got the OEM pinion gear. It's super strong. The 33K is the fastest I use because I run lower ratios normally. And then the one of the bigger problems with the Warhead motor. People like to buy Warhead number one because it sounds cool as shit. I have a Warhead, and their marketing's great, right? But the problem is, like, especially in their early generations, they released a motor that was not ready for the market. And so, like, the motor tabs, like, if the tab was this wide for, like, where the motor connectors go, maybe this much of it was touching the board. So they just break off.
Yeah.
So, because of that, I never recommend Warhead products. And they're more expensive. Way more, like $50 more. So, and they're slow, and they have less torque. They're a worse product. So get a T238. It's the best motor you can get. And then I typically always run bushings, especially in a brushless build, because the brushless motor doesn't care if it's... The brushless motor has so much torque and so much power. It is just it's gonna spin that gear, and it doesn't care what's happening downstream of that or what its effects are. It's just gonna spin. Like if it's chewing through your gears, it doesn't care. It doesn't matter if it's blowing through your piston or it's eating through. So you have to choose your parts so that like that motor can do its job and that the parts downstream hang in there.
Can keep up.
Yeah, they're just like, look, exactly. Yeah. There's a Coke addict in the motor grip, and we're just trying to keep the piston going.
Yeah. Trying to feed him.
Just yeah.
So
Keep everything moving. So I always like bushings. So I like to use FLT or American made, or I like the retro arms bushings as well. I found that they're great, but the FLTs are smoother. They're a real hard tool steel. And then my gear choices have been evolving a little bit. So normally I get SHS gears from Brill Armory, especially the Generation 5 gears they're a good step in terms of quality. I always encourage everyone though, like if you buy a gear set, and especially SHS gears, and they have those screws in them, you want to pull. They're usually 1.5 millimeters on the sector gear. You want to pull them out and then Loctite them yourself. Because I've had a countless. That was a big update that I had to tell my customers that like, hey, I need you guys to send your guns back because I want to pull those screws out and re-Loctite them just so you never have a failure.
Quality control.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, as you learn, you gotta tell people. As you learn shit, you gotta tell people. You gotta be honest.
It's a great quality. Most large businesses, if they have something like that pop up, they're not really ever going to hear of that issue.
Yeah.
Except from airsofters, right?
Go to the tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't want someone to drive. I mean, it makes me feel sick when if someone were to drive to a mill sim and then their gun jams because one of the screws comes out of their sector gear, and I've known for a bunch of months or a year and didn't say anything, that's on me. And I could act dumb and be like, well, SHS didn't lock it in place. It's like, well, I didn't lock it in place. It's the truth.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So whenever I have I try to tell my customers, whenever I find a good replacement component for something that's been having issues, I try to tell people like, hey, send it back. Just pay for the part. You don't have to pay for the work, and we'll just get your gun updated.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, SHS gears, and then like on the 2 last LMGs I used these new Solink helical gears, which were very high quality. I was very impressed. And I don't have any long-term data. Like the guy just got his PKM just recently, and the Stoner needs to be worked a lot harder. I did a Stoner 63 with those helical gears, but they look to be really, really premium.
And compression systems, what kind of compression parts are you using?
Man, there's so many quality compression components. I don't know if you could make. I think the most important part is the piston in terms of its strength, or even its ductility. That's why I mentioned I was using that new Angel Custom piston. That it's not like this super hard polymer. It's actually kind of malleable, and so if you epoxy the rack of that piston into the piston body, where another piston might crack, this piston just kind of can deflect and move a little bit, which is really what you want. It's like, if I was going to compare, there was a time where Schnell, they do like testing for motorcycle helmets. They wanted helmets to be so hard that they wouldn't crack.
Mm-hmm.
But they realized that it's actually causing a lot of brain damage. That actually it's better to have a shell that could crack and give and move versus just being ruthlessly hard.
Right.
So I moved recently over to the Kratos piston, and yeah, it's probably now the strongest component in my gearbox. But when it comes to piston heads and cylinder heads and nozzles, I think just make sure the nozzle works with your hop-up unit, because different hops have different nozzle length requirements. Make sure it's got an O-ring. But cylinder heads, like there's got to be 100 cylinder heads on the market, and they're probably all great quality. I use the SHS cylinder head mostly. It's like $8.
So would you say that you would pick a polymer piston over a CNC'd aluminum piston?
Oh yeah, yeah for sure. Because I feel like aluminum's just going to scrape up your gearbox, and also as the aluminum wears, you're going to get aluminum filings inside your gearbox.
Which then in turn,
See, we didn't think about that.
yeah, we didn't.
Yeah.
We thought go CNC'd aluminum. It's lighter. It'll be better for the gearbox. But hearing this now,
Polymers where it should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't used one, but that would be my thought. Is that like if it's aluminum on aluminum, something's getting shaved off.
Yes.
Whether it's coatings or whatever, and a CNC'd piston is going to be harder than your cast aluminum zinc gearbox. So I would imagine it's just going to wear off your. Also, aluminum on aluminum actually gets really because it's aluminum oxide.
Yeah.
So it's not a really nice contact surface, and when it gets hot, it gets kind of gummy.
So it could essentially slow it down.
Yeah, and create kind of gunk and yeah,
Plus all the
get
shavings
a
inside
bunch of
there.
extra friction. Yeah.
Well, speaking on, you were talking about nozzles fitting well with hop-ups. Let's talk about hop-ups for a second. What do you recommend hop-up unit-wise?
There's a lot of good options. The only one that I know of that has retention is the Max, because it has the latch that works with it. So I think it's nice that when you pull a magazine out of your gun, you don't get a string of BBs that comes and falls out of it. I feel like I feel like it feels more premium. But the Max requires a little bit of QC check before you use it. It's got a lot of screws on it, and so I like to take out a lot of the screws and put Loctite on them. Just because, especially brushless builds, there's a lot of vibration, and those screws are real small. They don't have a lot of thread depth. So Maxes, and I only use the Max because I like the BB retention, but then also I use a lot of maple leaf buckings. That's pretty much all I use.
Yeah.
What degree maple leafs are you running?
It actually depends a little bit, because you can get normally I use a 70 degree, use the blue ones. But if you run a 60 degree, you actually usually get a little bit more compression, because I think it seals on the nozzle better because it's a little bit softer rubber. So a lot of the indoor guns, like the AirTech builds that have those short, like 155 millimeter barrels, to get 350, I have to run an M125 short stroke 3 teeth with a low volume cylinder, and then I've been running a softer bucking, and it helps get the power up a little bit because it just seals a little bit better. But most of the Milsim guns usually it's 70 degree. And then if you're shooting really hard, run a 75, or I run an 80 in my sniper.
Okay.
Yeah. And the hardness offers two other things. It's not just like the seal and then the durability, but if a harder rubber requires more pressure to get more lift. So actually, it also gives you a wider adjustment window. Because on, like, let's say a 50 degree, you may get a ton of overhop between like 6 and 7 on the max hop up on the dial. But if it's an 80 degree between 6 and 7, you may get almost barely any adjustment. So the harder rubber can give you a finer tool.
I will say, speaking on that max hop, so I was just working on a gun, and the issue of the gun was the max hop up. Where that paddle is, it wasn't causing retention for the mag to allow for it to release BBs. So, come to find that is an issue.
It can if that latch can't get up high enough, that can be an issue. The other thing you can do is you can like push the latch all the way up, like with your finger, and then if it's still blocking that entryway, just use I use a small pick, and I'll bend that arm so that it's out the way all the way.
Oh wow, okay, good to know.
Yeah.
I think I forgot what gearbox it was where I think it might have been a Specna, where it had that issue, or it was a Combat Machine G2.
Okay.
But it happens. Just something to check on.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about those Specnus.
They're
Used one.
you should avoid them. They got a lot of. I just had a customer's AK go down today because his motor cage on his AK broke.
Oh,
Like bevel gear looks great, everything, but it went from firing to being like screeching.
oh,
And it's because like on an AK, that motor cage comes in. There's like two teeth, and they kind of grab together for the cage. Well, one side broke, and so the motor cage was like opened a little bit. So
oh wow.
you want to get that super fine shim job, but when the motor dramatically shifts, half a millimeter, not gonna run.
Yeah,
It'll make a lot of noise. Not good noise.
So speaking on this tech work, we were talking a little earlier before the show. So you have an Instagram where these guys that are coming into the airsoft community,
Winley.
you have the ability to now show them exactly what they could do to help build their guns up, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any more on that YouTube or anything like that?
I have a YouTube, but I kind of just upload the videos that are on my Instagram then onto my YouTube. YouTube, I find, just has a lot of haters. But then also, it's like, this is the reason I got rid of my TikTok, is because like you get a ton of views and a little bit of engagement, but there's no customer base, I find, on those platforms.
Right.
It's like people are scrolling.
Yeah.
And when you post longer videos, like if they're longer than 30 seconds, like the viewership is, some of my videos have like no views.
Right.
And then I posted one of me like doing my little finger thing on the AirTac build, and it's already got like 15,000. It's like, it's such an ADHD platform. I just think YouTube.
I've learned
YouTube's
with
not available. So nearly everything I have is on Instagram.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I've learned with TikTok, there's a certain time of day that you have to post in order to get the most engagement with your videos.
Yeah.
It's an algorithm that you got to learn
It is.
very
yeah.
early on.
And I just feel like if I was making money on views, I would fight for that, but I'm not. And so it's like,
Yeah.
most of my work comes from return customers or people who shoot a customer build and then they contact me.
Mhm.
So really, it's like not even through Instagram. Like, I get contacted through Instagram, but most of them, their friend or someone at their field has a build. Except I got a customer in Spain I got to build a gun for. I got a customer in England, and then I got another one who's in Hong Kong.
Oh wow, you got to deal with the one jewel issue over in the UK, right?
It'll be 325 FPS with a 2.5. Or sorry, it'll be 1.1 with a 2.5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know the UK's got a one jewel rule where the max they can have is one jewel or something like that.
I think actually in the UK it's you can't shoot it might be under a jewel. They have some weird rules out there.
Yeah.
I think if you shoot too soft, it's considered a what do they call it? Not a replica. It might be. It's like a real firearm. So they have like a minimum you have to shoot. Maybe that's Canada.
Yeah, because I was looking at getting a version 2 gate gearbox complete, and the only place you can actually find videos of it is on YouTube and coming out of the UK area, and they actually had to work out with Gate a way to make it to where it can only fire a max of one jewel.
Oh, well. Yeah, maybe then.
That's why I just went with the gate gearbox and not the inner guts inside it. That way I could play.
Yeah, and I think
it's
the
interesting.
gearboxes look pretty good quality.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't want nothing. After seeing that first one break, I was like, yeah. It's either Retro Arms or Gate.
Yeah, I think Airsoft Dad, he bought one of their pre-built gearboxes and just dropped the brushless motor in it. Not a super high speed one, but it seems to run fine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good option. I just don't know how the shimming really works on those because the bevel gear just
I
comes from
can.
the factory.
So I actually have firsthand experience with one because I actually purchased one and then had to send it back
Oh, really?
because it was shimmed way too tight. The gears would not spin at all.
On ball bearings?
I think so.
Or are they bushings?
I think
Yeah.
that's what they put in.
Well,
It was shimmed so tight the gears wouldn't spin at all.
Maybe you needed a brushless. That way you could just eat right through it.
just,
It was gonna eat something.
fuck it. Yeah, exactly. Get a
Let's
52,000 RPM warhead and just let it
Hey, I
fight.
put a 45K motor in it, and I was chipping away at the bevel gear.
Oh,
So-
sure. Yeah. It's hard to mass produce high quality. And I probably what they're trying to do is they're probably trying to like say this many shims top and bottom and then just copy that across the platform. But that doesn't work. It doesn't work in my experience. Like every
Shims are so small, they stick together.
There's different size shims.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use Aztec shims. And they come in 0.1, 0.15, 0.2, 0.25, 0.3, 0.35, and 0.5. And so I like having that adjustability of like a 20th of a millimeter. Sometimes you want less than that because sometimes it's like a 0.25 is too much. And let's say it's a stack and it's like let's 0.75 on bottom. And then 0.7 is a little too snug. It's like you wish you had a little more space. But ADHD, right? Autism. There it is. Coming through.
Well, hey, somebody's got to do it, right?
Someone's got to do it.
Somebody's got
Exactly.
And most airsofters are like, yeah, I can tech. No,
Yeah.
you can try to tech.
Yeah.
You're not teching.
There's different levels too. I've stopped doing pre-build gearboxes because I shipped out a couple to some people that it's easy to overestimate your capacity.
Mhm.
Or like how I would install it. And then I spend, several hours trying to help them. I'm like, man, you should they don't want to ship their gun or they feel like they can do it. And it's like, man, I like to send back a finished product that you can just plug in and run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you're paying for.
So
like, you're going to spend the same on labor, whether I build it or you try to half build it.
yeah, so you used to do pre-built gearboxes that were drop-in?
I did a few for some people who asked about it, and then it was a drop-in. It was for a SEMA Platinum, so I built hundreds of those, and so I was like, well, I can just pre-build the gearbox so you can install it. So I pre-built it in my gun, and I ran it in my gun, and then I just pulled it out and put it in a box, shipped it to him with a motor grip and the motor already, so the motor depth was already set, so he doesn't have to worry about touching anything. You just put the grip on it, put the motor in there, put the bottom on, it's good to go.
Yeah.
But he couldn't
Fine-tuning
figure out how to
that
run
is
the
hard.
wires.
Oh, yeah.
There's all,
I've had a few issues in those.
yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I think it's like welding, I think we forget, like you guys are welders like I am. It's like you forget how many things you do automatically that you don't think about. Like when it comes to stick welding, like you don't think about the fact that you're having to push that that the stinger's getting closer every time you're burning, right? But if you're new, you're wondering like, why does this rod keep burning away? Like, well, that's how this works. And so like when you try to teach someone new, it's like there's things that it's just automatic.
It's like spinning the filler wire from a TIG welder. When you try to get down, people are poking away and they forget.
You don't, yeah. There's just things that you learn when you do it a lot that you don't think about, and until maybe you have to help someone. You're like, why didn't you think about that? I don't know. You're like, oh, okay. I'm on autopilot. So I feel like a lot of these gearboxes I put on a podcast and I'm on autopilot. And it's only when I get a really shit build that I have to pause everything. I have to go, what the fuck? What is going on?
Yes.
Breaking it down and trying to figure out what the problem is. It's always one of those where it's like, okay, I got to spend another day on this. Hold on.
Days turn from... I did someone's recoil shock recently, and it had a retro arms gearbox shell. And those are real hit or miss. Like the one that's in my recoil shock, it's really nice. But the gearbox that came for this gun I reshimmed it 5 times. And it was the same dog shit. The motor was just too whiny. It sounded like the pinion was just at a bad angle. And I told the guy, I'm like, hey man, I can't. I'm going to a regular OEM gearbox. And he was like, okay. And it's flawless. Yeah. Built it once, it was fine.
Yeah. And it's crazy that some gearboxes are actually built specific. Like I have a Valken here, and the Valken gearboxes are specific to those guns, and certain parts don't work inside of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to the tech today. Go ahead.
I tried a max cylinder head, and the max cylinder head's actually too big to sit inside of a Valken gearbox. It won't work.
Won't close up?
Nope, it's too long on the bottom end.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Why do those companies do that? They're like, hey, we know Tokyo Marui did all this work to make everything perfect, and that's what the entire parts market's based on. Let's not do that. Let's do our own thing.
But hey, they put dimples in the gearbox to take some of the shock.
So I don't get it. Yeah, it's like, I'm glad KWA made some adjustments to their philosophy, and now you can put a gate tighten in there.
Mm-hmm.
But initially, yeah, they were like, we're not going to follow Tokyo Marui, we're going to do our own thing, and our gearboxes are 100% proprietary, and you can't do anything to them. And that's also
Valken's
super arrogant. Like, first of all, your gun is not that good. Like, KWAs are not that hot out of the box. Like, and especially 5 years ago. So for them to be like, no part support, like, oh, fuck yourselves. That's how I
Fair
felt.
enough.
Yeah, I mean, you're there working on every type of gun and every make and model, so you get a firsthand experience of how they make it, and you get to see parts don't work in certain gearboxes and parts that do work.
Oh, sure.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Or ETUs that don't work. Like the Jeftron did not like that Specna AK that took me 5 days. And then I switched over to the Perrin. No problems.
Yeah, I mean, I learned that VFC, they make a very standard gearbox that you can put most things into.
Everything, pretty much. Yeah.
They made it pretty universal.
Yeah, and I mean, they're relatively affordable too.
Yeah, I think the VFC gearbox is like the industry standard. They're really good to work on.
And I like my gig gearbox. I mean, being able to put anything I really wanted into it. I mean, it turned out great.
Oh, the gearbox, the Eon gearbox shell?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good too.
It looks superb even close.
It's a good look. It's a really nice gearbox. Yeah.
And it's dummy proof too. This is where things go. It's labeled, everything. I mean, it's like one of those, like, you're going to do it. Here you go.
It's good. It's a really nice unit. Yeah. I have a buddy of mine had me build his super junk plastic combat machine. It's a 28 TPA 12-to-1 build, so it's not brushless. But inside of it has a gate Eon and like all the nicest stuff. But the outside is you couldn't give it away looking at it.
Yeah.
But it runs. It runs really well.
Yeah, this gun that's on the table, it was not even remotely close to what it is now.
Yeah. There's a lot of work involved.
What is it? It's blurry on my side. Is it an MP5?
It's a Valken.
It's a Valken ASL plus Foxtrot.
Okay.
Is what it originally was.
Okay.
But now it's got a folding stock. It's got a 10-inch barrel.
An N7 mil sim.
It's got the N7 mil sim inside of it with a VFC gearbox. It's got a flat speed trigger.
Yeah.
So I did a lot to it.
You fill it out. Is it polymer?
The upper and lower is polymer, yeah.
Upper and lower polymer. Yeah.
But everything else I switched over to just metal.
Yeah. Mine's all metal.
Yeah. Which, I mean, some guns are entirely too realistic for airsoft.
Oh, you should try these like VFC gas blowbacks. God.
Like the H&K that Mark from Bushwookie has, it's heavy.
It's an identical rifle.
Yeah, it is a heavy hunk.
Yeah.
Great guns, but they're heavy.
Yeah. Sure.
I carried Mike's HK Force, was it 14?
416.
416 during a mill sim,
Mhm.
and he had it set up to be a sniper
A DMR.
or DMR, and yeah, I carried that gun more down than I did up. Such
Yeah,
a
man.
trip. I'm tired.
Yeah, it's,
So,
yeah. That's like all the
So I think they're-
LMGers that they want a full size LMG with an HPA setup. I'm like, man, that ain't heavy.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
lightweight.
to me, there's got to be a good mix of polymer and metal to where it's not uncomfortably heavy,
Yeah,
but heavy enough to handle the stress that you're going to put on it.
yeah.
yeah. The Russian players that play at our field here, they're part of the Milsim West Russian group. They have not the PKM. No, it's a PKM. It's like 25 pounds, and they
Ooh.
run through the woods with it. But they're always going prone. They don't shoot from the shoulder.
Yeah.
Prone out. Yeah. Let the earth carry that weight.
I mean, we got to carry around a 30 cal, an M1919, all metal
Yeah. With the tripod.
with the tripod.
And yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yep, it's
Yeah,
a
man.
It's 40 pounds.
Machine guns are that's where
But no.
soldiering, real soldiering comes in. It's like, oh, you want to carry here? Yeah.
I did.
Here's a
I
100-pound
did my
rock.
time.
Go up that hill.
Yeah.
Nope, I did my time. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, man. That's what a buddy of mine he'll be there. His name's Drew. He's a former Army Ranger. When I took him to an event, and he was like, "This is so cool running around with just a plate carrier." He's like, "I'm so light."
Exactly.
He's like, "I'm used to doing this with 70 pounds on my back." I'm like, "Fuck that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's real combat shit. Got all your food, all your
Mhm.
sleeping supplies, all your water purification, all your ammunition. I know none of you guys have knees.
I don't have a back or knees, so
Yeah, man.
I mean,
A
terrible.
lot of stress there. Kind of like a
That's-
gearbox. You just put
that's
too much
real
stress
shit,
on it.
dude.
So you give out. So,
put too much stress on a gearbox, it's going to give out.
Yeah, man.
well, Clint, it was really nice having you on.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate your time coming on and allowing everybody a little bit more insight onto what you do and, getting your name out there a little bit more so that way you can get more clientele. And, I definitely look forward to shooting some of your products.
Absolutely.
Cool,
First one there.
definitely.
Yeah, getting to meet you in person, that'll be great.
Yep.
And it's going to be a fun time.
Absolutely. And for the viewers watching, the Instagram link for his videos will be down below in the description.
Click on that link, go check them out.
Yeah, if you want a pretty bad looking gun that shoots really dang well,
Go check them out.
go check them
Yeah.
out.
And as always, do what you love.
And love what you do.
Thank you. Good night.